Good morning, good evening.
Good morning. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It seems like it's been a while. I don't
It's
know.
been a
Is
few
that just
weeks,
me?
at least a few weeks. I
Yeah.
think 2, 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, we've
And then
taken
and
a
then
break.
between that last one, it was another 2 weeks. So I think it's kind of a cumulative
Yeah.
feeling of
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I am
So
trying a new setup. I have my new computer, my new laptop, and I'm using the Zoom on that. So
excellent.
let me know if the
I see.
audio or the video is a little bit
Yeah,
strange or
will do. I'm going to try
okay.
again. It says mine's been up. I'm going to try again to no, you know what? I don't think I'll mess with it because I've got gonna just try to use the HD and see whether yes the wide, see if it works this
Oh,
time.
okay. There we
A
go.
bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I'm
widened
gonna
up a
just
bit.
see because there were some difficulties with it in a few of our sessions. So I was like, okay, you know what? Until they
Yeah,
sort that out with updates or something. So I think may have updated now.
great. Yeah,
Anyway,
it looks like your
so great.
signal is strong. So I'm
Yes.
broadcasting from the millet scattered islands of the Saha world here.
Yeah, live and live. Well, yeah, recording live and in person from
Yes.
Jambudvipa on
Yeah.
the
Well, yeah.
southern continent.
Shinron
It's really
calls, and I think it was a literary term, but he refers to Japan as the millet scattered isles, the
uh,
islands
yeah.
scattered like millet
Uh,
seed to the east of China. Because, of course, in Shinron's day or era, it was a Sino-centric world.
yes.
In which, China, the Middle Kingdom, Chu Goku, right? The Middle Kingdom was the major power. Japan was a small
Mm.
little afterthought island on the far east of the world. And Shinron often, expresses his wonder in terms of, that the teaching came from India, of course, the land of the Buddha. Modern day Nepal, was where
Mhm.
the Buddha was
Of
born,
course.
but in the past, of course, was, India, the Indian subcontinent, to China, and then finally to Japan, and he's always amazed at how, fortunate we are that the teachings came to our, far distant
Islands. Yeah,
islands.
these far islands
Yeah.
to the east. Yeah,
Well, we
from the
have a
west.
lot to talk about.
Yes.
I feel.
Uh, we do. Yes, we do. And I was just joking about, bringing in, I wasn't specifically talking about Japan when I was joking about Jambudvipa
Mm,
and the southern continent. I was just in general
mm.
joking
Oh
about
yeah, yeah. No, it's called
our our our
yeah.
spiritual location in consciousness and the consciousness of
Right.
samsara. Anyway.
Exactly.
Anyway, so yeah, we do have lots to talk about.
We do indeed. So I did receive your messages.
Yes.
And I read them. And I also, as you know, or perhaps you didn't know, but Kobai Sensei, his final lecture at Tsukiji
Yes.
Hongwan-ji here in Tokyo, he will no longer be coming regularly to give lectures here.
Oh,
So he will be retiring, from that
yeah,
part of
retiring.
his
Yeah.
career. But I'm sure he'll continue to share the Dharma with us on
E-
Facebook
exactly. I
and
don't.
and
I
other.
think till his last breath, I think he will be
Yeah,
sharing the Dharma
exactly,
and
exactly.
teaching.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, it was a very nice day. There was a wonderful lecture on the final chapters of Tanisho, followed by uh, konshinkai, we call it in Japanese. It's a dinner party afterward, which I also attended. Um, but maybe I should say this before it's at the beginning, or so I have it has been decided, or I have decided, I should say, that I am going to be pursuing and receiving Tokudo ordination.
Fantastic. Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. Finally,
Congratulations
I made up my mind.
on your decision. Congratulations on your
Thank
decision
you.
and your
So the
intention.
ideal, yeah, and it was actually Reverend Shinkin Fujihara, who is a big fan of our videos.
Oh, excellent.
He was actually the one who contacted me and said, Gabriel, you have to get Tokudo, and you have to, wear the kesa and
I
do the
agree.
yeah, well,
I agree. I agree.
um,
Not that my lowly opinion is
no, I
is
appreciate the support.
I'm very excited to hear that. I was always hoping
And
that you would do they.
well, thank you.
Um, that's no, it's just really great news. Great
Well,
news.
what really, I think what really made me decide is actually last week I attended Reverend Jerome Ducour's seminar, Hoonko seminar. It was a 3-day seminar at Eco House in Germany. And it's so sort of reopened my eyes to just the wonder and the beauty and the joy of our tradition in Buddhism. And I was especially motivated by the fact that this was, you know, a person from Switzerland who had received Tokudo. He, of course, Jerome Ducour, received the ordination through Jean Heracle, who was a significant figure in the transmission of Jodo Shinshu to Europe. And he himself was a student of Harry Piper. But in it, I just was so impressed by Reverend Ducour's the depth of his understanding of Shinshu and also the depth of his faith and how he could take as an academic, because he is, he's taught at universities, he's a curator of museum, he has all the credentials, but at the same time he's a devoted follower and
Very clear on the
very, very clear.
on
I would
what
say
he's here for, or what he's what
exactly,
his purpose
exactly.
is.
And some of his there were throughout the whole seminar, there were so many just eye-opening moments, like things that I had never noticed or realized or seen or heard. I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, and it really did kind of it gave me the push to
Yeah,
say, I, as a foreigner, so to speak, an American, there really is something to pursuing Tokudo, receiving, being ordained in the tradition, and actually taking more of an active role,
mm.
in sharing the teaching. Not that, of course, we can't do that as lay people. Of course, that's an important
Exactly.
aspect as well. But so
No,
anyway, so
I
that's
think it's
a little.
I think the priest or the teacher has a very important role um, in in Buddhism in general. But I think
Yeah,
it is important to have that formalized teacher, that trained, formalized
yeah,
teacher that goes through a certain process, both personally and I guess you could
yeah,
say avocationally, professionally. Do you know what I mean? To
yes, absolutely.
and that and to have those boundaries within the sangha,
Mm,
to have to have some individuals like that can give guidance and and
yeah,
do understand the authentic teaching and transmit that
yes,
as it
yeah,
should be. And because I just think I've explored some other, not Jodo Shinshu, but in other forms of Buddhism,
mm,
other schools of Buddhism. There's lay person kind of organizations. And I think,
Yeah.
to some degree they have their place, and there's a good can arise from that. But I think when you don't have that, the proper influence daily, or a regular presence of the teacher, of a formalized teacher, of a priest, of the just things can go awry very quickly and become very cultish and strange, and just weird stuff starts creeping in, and attitudes, and just because, or it becomes too loose, and well, we just are kind of we're just teaching mindfulness, and you know what I mean? It just becomes not really Buddhism. So, it's those two extremes. I just think it's just good to have that, and someone who's a healthy person, a healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically, so, healthy person in that role.
Yeah.
So, can I ask you some questions about it, actually?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The process of it. I tried to look this up online myself. Within the Hongwan-ji, what's the process that someone goes through, to become, and to first of all get, to be able to do, Tokudo, and then anyway, what's the sort of whole process of that? Obviously personally and formally.
In our tradition, of course, as you know, Tokudo has to be, received from the Gomonshu Sama, the current Gomonshu. And it's done so in a ceremony that follows a quite rigorous retreat at Nishiyama Betsui in sort of the eastern part of Tokyo, but it's a Betsuin, a branch temple of Hongwan-ji. And there are a number of requirements. You have to have memorized Shoshinge, and you have to be able to chant it theoretically without referencing any text, purely from memory. And there are a number. You also have to learn, I think, the reading, how to read Gobunsho. There's a lot of technical requirements, basically, that are related to the chanting and so on. And so, in order to have the training or the education to do these things, there's let me just tell from my experience. So I enrolled with Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin, Central Buddhist Academy would be the English translation, which is basically a seminary school, or it's actually a Senmon Gakko in Japan, which means like a technical school for Buddhist priests. But they have a correspondence course, and that's what, since I live in Tokyo, I couldn't actually attend the Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin campus in Kyoto. So I enrolled in the correspondence course. And to do so, you do need, if you're going to enroll in the course that's for Tokudo, that gives you the qualifications, let's say, for Tokudo, you need the stamp of approval of a priest, a resident priest of a temple. Yeah. And so in my case, I had.
I was going to ask that. I thought that you needed some sort of either mentorship or sponsorship or something to approve you, or to kind of recommend you.
Yeah.
To do that, even to take that course. Yeah.
Yeah. And in my case, it's a temple in Nara called Jokyoji, with which I had a previous connection. And this is a temple that has a lot of sort of connections, I would say, with actually, foreign missions of Jodo Shinshu. So, for example, Inagaki Zuiken Sensei was often preached the Dharma there. and also Ernest Fenollosa, who was an American who taught at Tokyo University in the Meiji period, gave a lecture there about Buddhist art, which at the time was being destroyed tragically by radicals who they had, the slogan was throw out Shakyamuni and get rid of and revere the emperor, because Buddhism was seen as a foreign thing, and they were kind of like radical
imperialists.
Imperialists.
Yeah.
So a lot of Buddhist art was being
which kind of Shinto oriented, wasn't it? Shinto kind of.
Yeah, well, not
well, I should say
historical Shinto, but
they would use they abused use and abuse of Shinto,
right? The new Shinto, you could call
political power purposes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But so a lot of Buddhist, priceless works of art were being just burnt and destroyed around Japan. And we have, entire temples that were wiped out in that time period. And Ernest Fenollosa was an American. He was kind of seeing these things through the eyes of an outsider, and realizing, we have to save this stuff. It's like, this is precious. And so he would try to give lectures and get the Japanese people to recognize, you need to protect your heritage here. And so he did give one of these lectures at Jokyoji. Anyway, so I had a relationship.
There actually were some positive influences of the West. Among many not so good, very bad influences of the West, but there were some few good influences there amongst all the really not good
for sure
influences and involvement. But anyway,
exactly, good, very good point. So I received the inkan, the stamp from the Jushoku, the resident priest at Jokyoji, to enter the Chuo-Bukkyo Gakuin's program for Tokudo. And so it's a 3-year program, and it is all completely in Japanese, of course. And you have to, there are textbooks, you write essays, you attend a schooling, which is kind of like a seminar. And I took the exams and I passed. So I did graduate last year. And at the time, I was, it was kind of a coming out of COVID. I had doubts about whether to pursue Tokudo or not after I completed the course. And I kind of just let it go for a while. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's enough to continue as a lay practitioner, and because not everyone, receive Tokudo. Obviously, it's a kind of the vast majority of people remain, lay practitioners. So I was sort of at a crossroads for about a year. And then I received of course, then we started these videos, and I realized that I really do enjoy discussing Jodo Shinshu and talking about it on a deeper level and really digging into the doctrine and the history. And so that kind of was a realization, well, this is something that I do really love to do. And then Fujihara Sensei contacted me, and you may know him from Facebook, and he's
yes,
he says,
I do, yeah.
You can't just do this as a Shinran fan, Gabriel. You have to, you've got to get Tokudo and wear the keisa, and and then you should, you have to. And I realized, yeah, you're right. I do need to.
I'm so glad. It's a privilege to have been. I'm really privileged that and honored that it was part of this. Our videos and our process that kind of was part of that.
Definitely
part of that path decision. And
absolutely.
And God, kind of not guidance, but put you closer to the, on the path to doing that. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And Yeah, and I have to thank you so much for, hosting these videos and giving me the opportunity. But so now where I am now, and then of course the Hoonko seminar by Reverend Jerome Decor, I realized, sort of reawakened my awareness of just how incredible our Shinshu tradition is, and how there really is a place for people who aren't necessarily born in Japan, but who are coming from other countries, other perspectives, to join the global sangha of Jodo Shinshu. And so that was very inspiring. And I realized, yeah, I could see myself doing this and becoming, a member of that community. And then I talked to Kobai Sensei, and he also, was very enthusiastic and encouraged me, and said, he looked up because when you do Tokudo, you have to purchase, all the outfits, the kesa, the robes and so on, and the ninju and all of this. And it's a special ninju, So Kobai Sensei, actually contacted Honzon, the Hongwan-ji office, and figured out how much it will cost, and printed out a list of the things I'll need and gave it to me. So, from the beginning right up until now, Kobai Sensei has, supported and, been always there to encourage me on the path. And I guess I can say this, it hasn't been officially announced, but I will be receiving my So Seiki, which is basically the temple that you have to be registered with a temple to become a priest to receive Tokudo. And Reverend Fujihara Sensei from Sairakuji you may know him from Facebook.
I think, I don't know if I'm actually friends with him on Facebook, but
okay, but
we seem to frequent the same. I think I've
yes.
seen him in similar groups or liked each other's posts or that sort of thing, and so, or different comments.
Well,
I've encountered him in the comments or something. Yeah, I can't remember if I'm actually friends with him on Facebook yet. Anyway.
Well, he very generously offered for me to take my Soseki under his temple. So I will be, receiving Tokudo as a priest affiliated with his temple, Sairakuji, in Izumo City, which is a very beautiful temple near the ocean. You can actually see the ocean from his temple. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. So very grateful. Now the process from here, there's a lot of application and that sort of thing that I'm not entirely familiar with. So I'll have to be getting guidance from Fujihara Sensei and others who are more familiar with that process. But essentially that is the process. And then from now there will be
that's the process up to this point.
Right. And then now,
so the next step, from now,
the next step is, I believe Fujihara Sensei will submit the application on my behalf with his approval to Honzon for me to receive the Tokudo. And then there's a brief training course that you have to take. And then there's the full Tokudo, and I believe it's 10 days. At Nishiyama Betsuin, where you're no mobile phones, no electricity. You are literally, in the temple with your fellow candidates for Tokudo, and it's 100% Jodo Shinshu Dharma, the teaching, 24/7. So
yes,
it's very intense.
I've heard there was a BCA presentation I listened to. This was years ago,
Mm,
where the priest that was talking about it was talking about the intensity of it.
yeah, yeah.
It was quite fun and joking, because there were some that were had either just gone through it, that were there, or about to go through it, and just the
Mhm.
things he was saying jokingly about the
Yeah,
intensity of it was quite funny. Uh,
yeah,
but anyway,
yeah. So that is what I have to look forward to, and that will be hopefully my goal is to receive. I think it's a little probably spring would be a bit early, but maybe by next year, the fall, if I can fulfill all the requirements to do the application, then that will be the target, let's say.
So there's this application process and these requirements that you need to fulfill between now and then. So
Mm.
what is that? What is
Yeah.
there kind of,
Yeah, the application will be the one that I will have to submit, and it'll either be submitted for me by the temple that I'll be receiving
Okay.
the Soseki from, or I receive the approval and then I submit it. I'm not sure which way it goes,
Okay.
but anyway,
Okay.
either way, that gets submitted.
Is it and you said the requirements need to be fulfilled. So obviously there's probably going to be some practical things there,
Right.
that you need
Yeah.
to, in the application. But like, are there kind of religious, are there sort of religious things you need to kind of show and prove
So
as
it is
part of the
assumed-
application process to get to that? Yeah.
Yes, there are, and those I've already fulfilled those because I graduated from the correspondence course at Chuo-Bukyo-Gakuin. So
there's nothing further than that. There's
not
nothing
that
further.
Okay. Yeah, you do even if you have to take kind of like an orientation.
Okay.
I think is how you could think of it, but it's
Okay.
separate from the the doctrinal and the teaching,
Right.
the knowledge part.
Gotcha. It's more of a orientation week. It's more of a freshers week.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Only maybe not as fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And I think it's only maybe a couple days or a day or two. So
yeah,
it's
well,
not like
that's
a long.
But yeah, so just an orientation to just kind of how it works, what to expect, what to
Right.
Yeah. But you mentioned requirements to be fulfilled before,
and then,
as part of it before the application. So that's what I was getting at. So obviously the correspondence course, that specific course talking about earlier, the orientation, and what are some of these other requirements before getting.
You have to purchase the required books and implements. So that includes the and that is quite.
You mentioned that earlier. You have to purchase the books, and you have to purchase the robe, or is that something you receive? You purchase the robe.
You have to purchase it yourself, and the thing is this is all made in Kyoto, silk, fine handcrafted stuff. So the price tag is quite higher than your average off the shelf clothing. It's
so some they may need literal sponsorship to do this. For some, some people might, or there might.
The sponsorship, I did ask about that, and in the case of, for example, if in the BCA, because there is a possibility that they would sponsor you, but in return for the sponsorship, of course, then you kind of become you would be expected to work at their temple. So it's
fair enough.
It's a give and take, right? Fair enough, right? In Japan,
but I'm just thinking of people that might not be able to afford it. Is there some is there some means that know what I mean, of assistance?
You could try GoFundMe. Or something like that.
Gotcha.
But other than that,
you're kind of on your own in one way or the other. There isn't something built in through the Hongwan-ji or through a temple or through anything where there's something already kind of in place charitably or sponsorship wise or otherwise to assist someone financially.
The exception to that would be in the case, which is typically the case, where the person receiving Tokudo is the son or daughter of a temple family.
Right.
In which case the temple family pays for it. Right. It's
That's,
like your father, your dad paying for your education.
Yeah.
So that would be that particular case.
Part of
but
that
in the case of
that's part of that institution and tradition. That's an institution.
Right. Exactly.
That's that part, but yeah, anyway.
But in the case of an independent, let's say an independent person like me who isn't the blood relation of,
any Joe Bombo off the street.
Yes, any Joe Bombo off the street. It's something that will be self-funded, fundamentally self-funded. Now, of course, I mean, if you're fortunate and, your parents decide to chip in, well, that's, good for you. But other than that, other than privately sourced,
there's not any kind of formal, formal or informal process there.
No.
Just people. Okay. Something
because
to keep in mind.
It's already, you have to remember, it's already a nonprofit organization. So every expense is something that you are
to find
donating. And it's not like you're buying, it's you're donating to receive.
Right.
So it's
that makes sense.
That kind of basis.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, completely makes sense. And it's I suppose part of I would think part of the personal kind of spiritual process would be becoming strong enough and resourceful enough and humble enough, if need be, to ask for help, or to, or to be resourceful enough to raise the funds yourself,
exactly,
or to all those whatever the process is for the individual. That to me would seem like that would be kind of part of the process of preparatory kind of spiritual process for you in a sense.
And the total cost is around, it's gonna be around 40 how many yen? I sometimes have trouble converting yen to dollars. 40,000, right? No, sorry, 400,000 to 500,000 yen, which is around roughly 3,500 to 500,000. 3,500 to $5,000 USD. So it is a
for the whole process, the school, the initial school, the correspondence school, the orientation, the robes and accoutrements and books and so forth, and the Tokudo,
the fee for receiving
for all
Tokudo.
that itself totals $3,500 to $5,000.
And consider too that those 10 days you are receiving full lodging and full meals for 10 days. And this is, in a historic temple in Japan, in addition to the training and the practicing, the rigorous training for Tokudo. So you do have to keep in mind that this is that entire package is contained in the fees. So I will be saving, this year too. So
yes, and discipline. That's what I mean. That's another. It's to me, it's part of that is it's a spiritual process of, you have to be disciplined to save or to raise the funds or to humble yourself to ask for help with it or whatever it is for
I mentioned to a friend who was sitting to my left at Kobai Sensei's lecture, she was also attended Chuobu Kyogakuin's Sushin Kyoiku. And I said, I kind of had a bit of sticker shock, looking at the cost of what you require, and I said, "This is really expensive." and she said, "Yeah, it is, but think about it like it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and then once you receive Tokudo, you that's it. I mean, that for the rest of your life, you are, ordained as a Shinshu priest. So when you think of it in that perspective, that kind of puts it into, perspective in the bigger picture of.
Can I ask this? So can you talk about,
Yeah.
or is the actual days of the Tokudo kind of, you're not really, what happens at Tokudo stays at Tokudo, or is it something you can say, this is what happens,
Oh yeah, there's no secrets.
Okay, so
I don't personally know much about what goes on. I do know, I have had friends who, of course, have taken Tokudo, but I have never asked them to give me the blow by blow of what the training was like. But I do know that it's it's all focused on Saho, which is how to perform Buddhist services. Which includes services in our Hongwan-ji tradition, like Honko, the most important, obviously, but also how to officiate at funerals, and all the texts that are required in those situations, and the protocols, the etiquette, the bowing, the sitting, there's a whole history of things. Also how to read Gobunsho. I think Jason mentioned how he likes the Gobunsho reading, Rinyu Shonin's Gobunsho, how beautiful it is when it's performed
read formally in the liturgy.
So that way of reading is part of it.
So there's kind of the sort of liturgical training, the etiquette training, and all the customary customs and traditions training around actually doing certain ceremonies,
right?
Certain and probably that involves all the different holidays or observances and celebrations and all that. And so what about, is there a kind of equivalent of kind of, I don't know how you would say this, the pastoral part, the kind of looking after people, and that is that part of the training, the sort of, do you know what I mean? Or is that not really
the ministerial aspect?
Ministerial, both, not just, not both the looking after people aspect of that are a part of your temple or part of your group or part of your sangha, in their individual and group needs, but also obviously is there training of the practical side of running a sangha or a temple, and you know what I mean, those kinds of things, or is it not quite
right? Well, in Japan, Tokudo does not qualify you to run a temple per se.
Okay.
Tokudo, to be a Jushoku or a resident priest of a temple, you really need to have what's called a Kyoshi qualification. So that's kind of a separate doctrinal.
Would that be like
training.
A next level? Like you do Tokudo, and
it's
then
the
if
next
you're going to
level
become a resident priest, then that's another the next level.
And there are foreigners, non-Japanese Shinshu followers who have Kyoshi or had Kyoshi certification. One example that comes to mind is the late Reverend George Gattenby from Australia. He had Kyoshi.
Excellent. I've read his writings. Excellent.
Very excellent.
Excellent. Really, very, very good teacher of the authentic teaching. He keeps it. It's like the proper transmission, but yet it's not oversimplified. It's not over, like we've talked about. It's not
right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah.
I completely agree. And but the Kyoshi is not, I think, for overseas, like for in the case of maybe Europe or other distant parts of the world, Kyoshi isn't necessarily required for being the resident priest at a temple. So it kind of does vary depending on where you are, so to speak.
Okay.
I think the requirements. But in Japan, Tokudo is actually, something that like teenagers get to be able to to help at their parents' temple and then take over when their parents, pass on their temple kind of thing. So it's not a super high, it's not like a high level thing. But on one side, it is the most significant because Tokudo is actually in our tradition where you shave your head, and you do have to be okay with shaving your head completely. So that's enough. Like you talked about the discipline, right? So
yes.
Whatever pride or joy you may find in your hair.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, really. I can't put my finger on what you're getting at.
Exactly. Yeah. All gone. I think you can keep the beard. You can keep the beard.
Okay. Excellent.
But so, and that of course is going back to Shakyamuni, when he shaved his head departing from the palace. So that's something all Buddhist traditions have, and ours is no different. So in that case, Tokudo is, let's say, the most important. But beyond Tokudo, there are additional qualifications of a more of an academic and doctrinal nature. And if you get all the way to the top, then you actually are allowed to, you become what is termed a wajo, which is the highest rank in Jodo Shinshu's system. And actually, Kobai Sensei is a wajo. So his correct title is Kobai.
Unsurprisingly.
Kobai Wajo, but he's so humble that he never, will mention that or refer to it. But others I have heard when he interviews refer to him correctly as Kobai Wajo, which is a very high, a very honorific kind of appellation.
Oh, okay. How's that spelled? I think I'll start doing that then with Kobai Sensei. Kobai, what is it? How's it spelled? Well, how's it phoneticized?
How's it phonetically? It's Wa.
Yeah.
So and then Joe.
So just as it sounds, just
Wajo.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And that's with a J.
A bit of an overview.
W-A-J-O. W-A-J-O.
Exactly, yeah. W-A-J-O.
Is it all kind of one word, or is it hyphenated?
It is one. Well, it's two Chinese characters. But yeah,
in English, in the English phoneticized, it'd be just Wajo. Yeah, W-A-J-O. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, so, and I want to talk about these other levels again. Come back.
Yeah.
So Tokudo. Okay, you get Tokudo, and then and during that process you shave your head.
Yes.
Your head is
shaven.
You
don't have to. Let me make it clear. You don't have to continue shaving your head.
It's just for that occasion.
Just the once, and then if you can grow your hair out super long if you want to after that.
So, but some do. I noticed that there are some that keep it, that have shaved the head and then just keep it shaved.
That's a personal choice. I do see there are definitely
kind of in the tradition of the Shinran saying, what did he call himself? The shaven head.
Well, he actually said, "I'm a stubble-headed monk," because when he was in exile, he let his hair grow out again because he was no longer required to shave it as a monk. So that when he calls himself the stubble-headed one in Gutoku is actually the phrase that Shinran used to refer to himself as, which means something like this foolish stubble-headed one.
And didn't he refer to himself as a non-monk, non-lay person as well, associated with the shaving, with the stubble-headedness or something? Isn't there
right.
something? Anyway, so okay, so you get Tokudo. So what does Tokudo then? So obviously there's liturgical training, there's doctrinal training, teaching training. So you're a teacher then? By having Tokudo, does that mean you are a formalized liturgical doctrinal teacher of of Hongwan-ji Jodo Shinshu?
Yeah, and Tokudo does give you the sort of formal requirement to give, like for example, a public Dharma talk, in a temple, in a formal temple context, for example, and also to to enter the Naijin, the inner sort of sanctuary of a temple, to perform services like wasan, to recite the wasan in turn, and that kind of thing as well. And that goes for any temple. So if I receive Tokudo from Sai-rakuji, for example, I can go to another temple in Hokkaido, the north of Japan. I have a friend there in Jodo Shinshu. I may visit him. And if I do, I can help at his temple, officiating, at his service, and
if you have Tokudo, if you've been through Tokudo, you can just, by that virtue, you can help out.
Right, it's transferable, so to speak. It's not. There are no walls between temples within Hongwanj-ha. So
okay, yeah. So so when you get Tokudo itself, is the part of the ceremony at the end that someone shaves your head, the priest shaves your head, or do and then you get the kessa of a teacher? Is that?
Yeah. I think I'm not sure. I think your head is shaved at the end or toward the end, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's toward the end, and then
after the training, then it's kind of the final event, the final step of shaving
in the process.
Your head, and that is when you kind of cross over
in the process of wearing you down and wearing down your ego and your.
I imagine after 10 days, your ego is probably wearing pretty thin.
You just finish you off. So now.
Take me home. Take my hair. Let me go home.
Anyway, so and then you do. So there's a different kessa, right, for someone who's done Tokudo? Is there a different? Or is there something that signifies, or is it just the robes that you purchased and now you can officially wear them because you've been through?
Yeah, I think so. Basically. The really colorful ceremonial kesa, you do also become how to say, certified to wear in ceremony and so on. Yeah. But those must be like so expensive. I can't imagine.
So you don't receive just by going through Tokudo, you just receive you're certified if you can get one.
Yeah, there's definitely you're going to get a certificate, and possibly multiple. Japanese people love participation certificates and so on. And of course, you're going to receive a certificate with your homyo, your dharma name. And in the case where you've already received, like in my case, I already have kikyoshiki, so I have a dharma name already. They will ask me to enter your dharma name, and then it'll be my name will be on there with also, of course, my full legal name. So you receive that, and that document is the proof of your receiving Tokudo. You know, in terms of the legality of within the sect. You know,
so that certifies you to be able to then formally teach, to help out at ceremonies. If you know, help out, you know, at temples and things, you can assist as part of the you know, ceremonies,
and
or
liturgy, to perform
work at the temple. Or to perform
funeral services.
Funerals.
So
okay, so you can do that
independent.
So you don't have to do that through temple. You can do these ceremonies just because you've had Tokudo. You can do.
I believe so. Yeah, if a family
funeral,
contacts
a wedding.
you.
Can you do a wedding? Can you do a?
Yeah, weddings is a gray area. Historically, you know, Buddhists, we as Buddhists, Buddhist priests didn't perform weddings historically. You are, of course, aware of that.
Yeah.
And the Buddha didn't really say much about, you know, he kind of left that to the customs and the traditions
of the place.
Right. Yeah. Now, of course, he had a lot of good advice about, you know, husbands and wives and families living and how they should treat each other and so on, which is all great. But the modern concept of a Buddhist wedding is very, very new, and basically it's arisen sort of in it's like marketing, you know, it's in competition with Shinto, because
interesting.
Shinto shrines historically, at least since the early modern period in Japan, do have kind of a corner on the market of weddings. But then you also have white weddings, which is like Christian weddings in Japan, which have become popular in recent years. So then
you have formal West? You mean the sort of, by saying white weddings? Do we mean like the sort of formal white, the white gown, white bride veil,
exactly,
with the groom in black kind of thing? That traditional kind of,
you know,
not a white wedding in the in the Billy
it's a nice day for a white wedding. It's a nice day to start again.
Oh my gosh. Anyway,
so what Buddhist groups started doing is,
I never knew that. I will say I never knew that that was more of a later development.
I mean, I
Buddhist
think
weddings. I suppose, I've never actually, I've never come across anything that was a formal teaching of the Buddha about a wedding ceremony. It was more, I think he gave guidelines for how you're supposed to be with your spouse, you know.
Right.
There was, you know, there were things that were more beneficial or better ways to act, like, you know, guidelines for conduct for you as a, you know, husband or wife or spouse, or, do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. But that, now that I've never actually heard of an actual.
Right. And because there isn't one, you know, Buddhist organizations in recent years have started you know, kind of as a marketing thing to offer weddings at temples, to get, which, you know, I'm not criticizing.
I think it's
great.
I think it's great.
It creates an opportunity for couples to, you know, encounter Buddhism but in terms of, I suppose Tokudo would qualify you to officiate at those, but I'm not really.
Anyway. Well, I'm just trying to get a picture of all the things that you can do. So you can do ceremonies, certain ceremonies. You can do you can do liturgies. You can do and all the things that are involved with the liturgies, including the wasons, hymns. You know what I mean? You can formally do those in a service. Right.
And
you can formally give teaching, like you can you could in that formalized way. You are now certified to teach. authentic
and
kind of transmission of the teaching.
right, yeah, you can give a Dharma talk, Gohowa, it's called. You can also become a shuto at a temple, which is basically a helper, temple helper. And that's, you would be, like you just mentioned, you'd be doing all those things, helping the, other helpers and also the resident priest. So you could also help in Japan. This isn't so much a thing in the West, of course, but in Japan, Obon is a huge traditional holiday where families visit the graves of their ancestors. And that's like the busiest time for priests in Japan, because you have to visit the house of the members of the temple, families who are members of the temple, and perform a service before the Butsudan, the Buddha shrine.
The family Butsudan,
the family Butsudan and so on. And of course, in Jodo Shinshu, we have a special understanding of that, where it's not that we are creating merit for the person who is deceased, right? Because we can't do that in Shinshu. In Jodo Shinshu, we are expressing our gratitude for that person's life, and then also awakening to the awareness that that person who has become a Buddha in the Pure Land is now, teaching us, having it through through the Nimbutsu. So it's very, from other Buddhist traditions like Shingon and so on, Zen, Zen, they have a different understanding of
different approach
Obon,
to
the
that.
meaning of Obon.
Yeah, of course.
And there was, historically, there was even there was some questioning as to whether Shinshu believers should practice Obon, because there were probably some people who were saying this is not really a Shinshu practice. But what happened is they decided it's okay to practice this, but we need to have the correct understanding of it
through the lens, through the lens of Jodo
Shinshu,
of the teaching. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, kind of get the Shinran flip to it, the Jodo Shinshu flip to the perspective on it. Yeah, but no, okay, so those are some of the things you can do after receiving Tokudo, and then you said there's these other both supplementary and sort of next level things that you can do. Obviously,
there's certification
to become a resident priest. There's things you do potentially, and those differ from temple to temple and place to place. But you also mentioned an academic, sort of a next level, where you get more into the scholarship and academics. What is that next level then?
Yeah, and so the next level up from Tokudo, I believe, is called Kyoshi, or Kai Kyoshi, which is overseas minister. So Kyoshi, roughly translated, you could say it means minister, teacher, well, the literal meaning of the kanji is kyo, which is teaching, and then shi, which is teacher. So teacher of the teaching, is the meaning. So it's more of a doctrinal, it's very focused on the teaching. And, there are workshops and seminars and so on and so forth. And in Jodo Shinshu Hongwanj-ha, we have a thing called, and this is where my knowledge starts to get not so good, but not so complete. But we have a thing called Ango, which is the rainy season retreat. And this actually stretches all the way back to the time of the Buddha in India, when the monks would have the rainy season retreat. And that's in the Pali scriptures, in fact, where they would all gather during the rainy season and then discuss and, debate and talk about the teaching. And we do the same thing in Hongwan-ji every year. And I think that might be connected to, you have to basically pass the ongo, not, well, certification, I guess, or what do you call it? Test. Yeah, test
to participate in that
to progress in the scholarly level, kind of level up, so to speak, in the scholarly how to put it, ladder. So I know Sugihara Sensei from Oregon Buddhist Church recently, he posted on Facebook, he passed the Ango certificate examination.
Okay.
So that's Excellent. What that was about, in case you saw that post and were wondering.
Cool. Cool. Excellent.
So yeah, there is.
So that, and then you mentioned, so, and then there's another level above that kind of thing, or is it just kind of, that's where
the highest, well, the highest level is the where you would be entitled to be called wajo.
That's like what I mean. Yeah. So the next level. So but that there is another formalized kind of process for that called something more.
Yeah.
Or is that more of a traditional kind of?
Well, there is a thing called Kangaku-ryo, and it has a long history, but it's basically like the doctrinal authority kind of in Jodo Shinshu Hongwan-ji-ha. And it's basically a number of scholars who are qualified to, or certified to, they have a depth of knowledge, let's say, about Shinshu teaching, to be able to determine theoretically what is correct and not correct doctrines on. And this is long, complicated history. There was actually a point in Hongwanji.
I was just thinking there's, and in addition to all this as well, there's all the Japanese kind of different traditions and customs and things that are probably interwoven.
And also, you have the impenetrability of any organized religion that has existed for over 1,000 years, or has existed for over 500 years. I mean, you have a lot of, I know, it used to be very complicated, I think, and I think they've tried to make things a little more streamlined and
accessible.
Yeah. But there was a time in Hongwanji history where
more inclusive.
Where the scholars, the official scholar body of Hongwanji was actually turned out to be heretics. and it was the people who weren't in that group who had the correct teaching. That's called the Sango Wakaran incident, by the way.
Okay.
This is like Edo period's history of Hongwanji, but there's actually an interesting article about that event if you are interested. But the important thing is as we always say, Shinjin, Shōin, Homyo, Shomyo, Hoon. So whether a person is a high scholarly level or a simple, common person, the most important thing in our tradition is the realization of, true and real Shinjin. And
the arising and settling of Shinjin.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that is the important thing. And without that,
of course,
with all these scholarly and academic titles are, they're not going to, which is what Kobai Sensei often, points out on Facebook and elsewhere, is, we can't promote Jodo Shinshu in the future with pure academics and scholarly knowledge. There has to be religious experience and transformation and the things that make any religion alive. Definitely. So that's not to critique, the academic and the
But
scholarly.
I think that religious experience can be had through that process.
Oh,
not
absolutely. Yeah,
that
for sure.
there's a certain
Yeah,
this very
I totally agree.
preparatory. I think all of that we've discussed today. It's a process that
Yeah,
prepares you for certain things and
yeah,
helps you understand certain things in a certain way that you wouldn't if you didn't go through that process.
right.
I
And
think a great analogy for me is I have a friend
Mhm.
who is he is super talented, super resourceful, very charismatic, um, um, super brainiac, highly technically skilled, all these things, but he doesn't have a degree.
Mm,
So for years, he's said to me, I can't, he would always hit these ceilings in his
yeah,
profession, in his
yeah,
work, at organizations or whatever.
yeah,
And he would say, because I don't have a degree. And he'd get really very disgruntled about that and very,
mm,
and I would try to gently kind of explain it's not just, you probably do know more and are far more talented and far more resourceful, far more
right.
understanding of your profession and your than somebody than a lot of people with a degree. But that's not the
Mm,
point that they're
yeah,
looking for. There's a preparation that happens to somebody. There's a
yeah,
there's a certain, and you can decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depending on what it is.
mhm,
But there's a certain process that a person has to go through to achieve a degree.
mm,
Either a undergraduate degree or postgraduate degree or doctorate, whatever it is.
yeah,
There's a certain things that they have to go through that alter the person's personality,
yeah,
transform their thinking,
yeah,
their behavior, their discipline, and
yeah,
that it's not just the knowledge and the skill that they're looking for
right.
in that. It's that someone's been through that process.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And
absolutely. And
and
yeah,
I
it's
think that's
not
a good
just the piece of
analogy.
paper,
Yeah,
right?
it's not. Yeah, it's not about the
Yeah,
first piece of paper, but it is, and as
yeah,
for employers, you do have to have that. But that's not just what it
exactly.
signifies. Again, it's the meaning. It's the meaning that's important, not
Yeah,
the paper itself. It's what that. Do you see what I mean? I think that's a good
represents.
analogy
Absolutely.
for
Yeah, yeah,
this process. It's not
yeah.
required for somebody to be a Jodo Shinshu person or to be able to,
Hmm.
share the teaching or transmit but I just think it's important. It's an important
Mm, yeah,
institution. I think it's important to have
yeah,
those boundaries and to have someone go through that process.
right. And I
Otherwise,
mean, yeah, and Reverend Jerome Decor mentioned very early in his presentation, he mentioned he showed the passage from Tawny Show where it says, if a person is a scholar and they sort of use that to tell people, to scare people into saying you have to study or you can't be born in the Pure Land, and they're becoming an enemy of the Dharma. Whereas if a person shows that anyone can be born in the Pure Land through the Nimbutsu, then there's true meaning in being a scholar. So that's an important distinction. And I was so impressed by Reverend Jerome's just his knowledge. He is like a walking encyclopedia of Buddhism. And I'm not talking just Jodo Shinshu. He actually gives lectures on Madhyamaka, Nagarjuna's theory
yeah,
of the middle way.
yeah,
He
wow,
actually can read Tibetan, classical Chinese,
wow,
Sanskrit, Japanese. He's like an international treasure of Jodo Shinshu Hongwan-ji.
wow.
We are so fortunate to have him on, our team, so to speak, because, listening to his lecture, I was just blown away. And so many things he addressed are like questions and doubts that you have brought up. And I thought, wow, this is like exactly, I wish Scott could hear this.
Oh.
I have to go off
So do I.
screen just a moment. I have to
Okay.
plug in my
Yeah.
computer really quick.
All right, no worries. So yeah, that's I know there's actually a handful of things that have built up now that that I've raised as questions or barriers or things to talk about or topics for the different series we're doing. But when you raised this today, this is something I've always wanted to talk about and include in the liturgical listening series about this kind of formal part of the Hongwan-ji, Tokudo and these different levels and things. So I just thought, you know what, I've raised the question. Sometimes when the question I had most recently was pretty core underlying question. But important. Somehow when I actually just get it out, and I've raised that with you, and I've raised it with a couple of my Dharma brothers, the process of just doing that alone, putting it out there, saying it, speaking up, as Renyo said, saying what, when I actually put it out there as I really am thinking it, experiencing it, and not worrying about whether someone's gonna be either, whatever, funny about it or whatever, what my question or doubt or barrier is. Somehow just that alone, there's a process, I think this is part of the inconceivable working of the vow, that just raising that alone, I think there's some things get resolved, just not completely, but it gets weakened by doing that. And that's just I think that's a common sense thing, better out than in. When you share something that's bothering you,
hanging the laundry out to dry, just like when Shonin said,
and letting the sun just the light of the Dharma, the light of Amida just shine on it. But so I felt like just that's kind of how I felt after sharing it with you and with them. I didn't feel it as pressing. It wasn't as pressing. And then when you raised this today, I was like, oh, you raised, that your decision about Tokudo. I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to get out of myself. Sometimes I think it's better to just get out of yourself, get out of your own freaking ego, and just, you know what I mean? Talk about something else. And that's what I did today,
but I have to say that the issue that you raised, and also the messages you shared from your Dharma friends, Jason and others, had some really critical and important points. Boom. So we have got to address these. And I did prepare a lot of stuff regarding, including some from Reverend Jerome Decour's lecture and seminar that addresses this. So we have to address that first thing in our next session, absolutely, because it's so key, and especially some points that Jason raised was very important. And
huge, and like the points and questions that he framed it. I was like, exactly, that's exactly what I'm getting at. That's what I need to hear or to discuss.
I don't know if you can see
it's not, it's blurred out for some reason.
Blurred out. Okay.
Maybe there we go.
Anyway, there's nothing written on it. Since it was Kobe Sensei's last lecture, he gave us a gift, and this has his handwritten clue. I'm not going to open it.
Wow.
Because it's directly related to your question and Jason's questions, and so I'm going to reveal what is written here in our next session. So that's just to give you a little cliffhanger.
Okay, excellent.
We'll talk about this.
Nice. Thank
in
you.
our next
Wow, that's very exciting.
episode.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking those questions, to Sensei and to, to senseis, both,
Yeah.
both or all, or keeping them in mind when, you're hearing the discovery, the
And
presentation.
he has an answer. He has an answer for you. I asked the question
Oh.
pretty much exactly like
Fantastic.
you asked it. So
Fantastic.
I'll convey what his answer was.
Thank you.
Next session, and then
All right.
Yeah, we'll also dive in because the larger sutra itself addresses these questions, this issue, and so so it'll be good.
Yeah, a little. We're kind of nearing Bodhi Day. This is recorded in December. Now we're 4 days away.
That's right.
4 days away from, I guess you'd call it the universal observance, or the secular observance of Bodhi Day, because there are traditional observances based on the lunar solar calendars in different cultures, isn't there, where they observe Bodhi Day. So I kind of call this, for me it's the Bodhi season. Between now and like into February, I think some of them there'll be observances of it. Is the Bodhi season. The Bodhi season for me.
Like it.
Yeah. Instead of the winter festival season is the Bodhi season for me. But anyway, so it's a nice that'll be a nice thing to do around this time, is to have that question answer, and to do something different like this that we just did today.
Let me check my calendar very briefly and see. I think next week. Yeah. Okay. Next week. Shouldn't be any problems, any issues. So good. we can meet again, same time.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much for everything, and thanks for sharing your own journey, your own. I've always wanted to kind of do that at some point. This is one part of the journey, but your journey to Tokudo. Thanks for sharing your journey.
You're welcome. I didn't intend for it to take the entire episode, but
it was my intention.
It was a great conversation.
Once you raised it, I always had this in mind to talk about these different levels of Tokudo, and do you know what I mean? The different
and I have to say I am looking forward to sharing updates on the process as I go through it. I can kind of live on a live basis give you some updates too as well. So
that'd be great. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. So thanks again. What I'd like to start doing at some point in our sessions is to start and end our videos with either just doing some Nembutsu, or a little formalized something from the liturgy, a short thing at the beginning. Just to frame it. Okay. In the tradition, in the teaching, in the
Should we just do simple Nembutsu
and Gasho now? Yeah, and then because we do that with my Dharma brothers. We do that. We do a little thing at the beginning and at the end of our sort of weekly Dharma talk, or Dharma discussion, I should say. That's great. Dharma study, whatever you want to call it. But if we could do in the future, we'll think about what we want to do for that. But just do some. So just want to do sort of 3 Nembutsu kind of thing?
Sure. Or, let's do the 3 Nembutsu, and then as many Nembutsu as you like, and then we'll Gasho and Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Wonderful. All right.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you.
That's a great idea.
Take care. Until next time.
All right. Take care. All right.
Bye now. Bye-bye.
All right. See you again.